The warning is clear. If Italy can't spend its way out of the pandemic, then Europe's financial future is in danger. It is the EU country hardest hit by COVID, both in terms of deaths and its economy. And it's getting the biggest share of the bloc's recovery fund. This is Roundtable. Well, welcome to the programme. I'm David Foster. Clearly, Italy needs the cash, but why do some believe that the EU's entire future depends on this working? Italy was the first European country to be hit by the COVID-19 pandemic last year and has the European Union's highest reported death toll from the virus. It is also the main beneficiary of the EU's $900 billion post-pandemic recovery fund, with $233 billion going to Italy. The government hopes the country's recovery plan will boost growth by 3.6% by 2026. Priorities include infrastructure, like high-speed railways, green energy, such as hydrogen power projects, investment in internet services, and going digital in public administration. The plan also targets women and young people who have apparently disproportionately lost out during the pandemic.
The destiny of this country lies in this set of projects that I am bringing to your attention today.
The Italian government has been in negotiations with the EU Commission after concerns that the recovery plan lacks detail on structural reforms. Will Italy's economy be able to bounce back with this recovery fund? Let us head, first of all, on this programme to the eternal city that is Rome and welcome Angelica Donati, Regional President for Lazio of the Italian Construction and Development Association. Also in Rome, Davide Ceccanti, EU Policy Analyst, and we welcome back out of London, Lorenzo Codogno, visiting professor at the London School of Economics and formerly chief economist at the Italian Treasury. Great to have you all on the programme. Let me come to you, Davide, first of all, and ask you, why am I reading so many headlines that the European Union stands or falls because of what happens in Italy?
Well, it has been quite a complicated political situation in Italy since the last global financial crisis, and public opinion on the EU has been quite divided. But it's true that the Recovery Fund and the new initiative is definitely changing that. There is a perception that this time the EU might deliver and help the country to really regain growth in a country that has been not growing for almost 30 years. So that might be changing.
Yeah, what does this do for the future of European integration?
Really, the European Commission and the European Union in general, its future really depends on two things right now. One is the vaccine rollout, and the other one is the success of the national recovery plans. Italy is the largest receiver, and together with France and Spain, it makes up more than 50% of the total recovery money. And so really where the game is played is in these countries, and Italy is has the largest plan. So the Italian success really sets the next future for the EU. If the plan
Lorenzo,
is a success,
sorry to butt in, Davide. Lorenzo, it's quite a responsibility for Italy. Is the country ready?
Well, I cannot think of a better stewardship than the current government. I mean, Draghi has a huge reputation globally, and I think is certainly the best person to guide the country in this difficult moment. Also, within the government team, there are very well-known and brilliant persons that can actually support particularly the recovery plan and the investment plan, because I think that is very much crucial for the future of the country. So I think the team is a very good one. The only problem is that it's not going to last for more than 2 years at the maximum. And then after that, there will be politics as usual in Italy, which is not, in the past has not been particularly successful in actually supporting the economy and providing a good outlook.
So can you get enough done in 2 years to make this viable?
This is the big challenge, in my view. I think it's not even 2 years, because effectively, if you think that next year after the summer there will be the budget, which traditionally takes a lot of efforts and a lot of time of policymakers, and then effectively you start campaigning for the next elections in the spring of 2023. So effectively, it's between now and the summer of next year. So it's I think Draghi will have to deliver very quickly and very effectively. The good news is that most of the money of the Next Generation EU, the European investment plan, will be committed by the end of the political term. Although not spent, of course, but the plan will be laid out and the money is committed before actually Draghi leaves, which is good news in my view. It's certainly a guarantee that at least the setting of the plan has been decided by the current government.
Angelica, not only are you president of the local Construction and Development Association, you also have a family business that you're involved in. It doesn't sound like you've got very much time to get going. So what are the priorities in the building industry?
So the single biggest priority that the government needs to get right today in order to ensure that all the recovery fund monies actually hit the ground and are spent is definitely overhauling the Italian justice system, and even more urgently simplifying the bureaucracy, which has slowed down our sector massively. Italy has a terrible average. It takes twice as long to complete any kind of building work, any kind of infrastructure work in Italy than it does in the rest of Europe. And this is due to our rules and regulations, which slow down the process massively. So the government has promised that they will simplify our tendering laws with a special bill which will be passed, they say, on May 20th. And that is an important milestone to get started because, as you rightly say, we only have until end of 2026 to have everything operational, not just built, but operational. So we need to be sure that we're able to spend the monies and get the infrastructures and buildings in place and operational by end of 2026.
So when I hear it is spending and then reforms, your priority would be to get the reforms in so you can begin spending.
Exactly, because as we know, the recovery plan is being approved in Brussels and it'll be approved in June, but we need to get the reforms in place today. We need to know this month that, for example, we have a massive problem in Italy with regards to all of the environmental impact assessment, which is a very important part of, say, infrastructure spending, but which tends to slow projects down by anything between 2 to 6 years. A 6-year delay basically means we don't spend the funds. So that's the first step.
Yeah, and of course, if the funds aren't spent, Davide, there's a possibility Italy could lose them.
Yeah, well, definitely. But what she mentioned is really a good point. Italy struggles to spend EU money. And over the last budget period of the EU, so 7 years, Italy spent less than 50% of the funds over the first 6 years, over a period of 7 years. And we're talking about a smaller amount than the recovery fund money. And so this much larger amount, over 200 billion, will need to be spent in fewer years. And one of the reasons is clearly the lack of the justice system. And one of the merits of the new Draghi government is that the government introduced a series of reforms in the next to the recovery plan. And one of the main ones is the reform of the administrative and civil justice system. And the other one is clearly the lack of administrative capacity, especially at the local level where most of the funds are spent. And here, the new Minister for Public Administration is really trying to do something about this and call young and skilled people to work in public administration to implement these programs. And the last big issue is political instability, but this is not something the recovery plan can deal with.
You see, I'm wondering, Lorenzo, whether Italy is the right place in which to start a massive experiment of this kind. Inept bureaucracy, political instability, the inability to be able to spend money when it's given. It's a big responsibility. Are you sure that Italy can do it?
Well, it's a big challenge and has been tried many times in the past. But I would say this time might be different in a sense that there's plenty of European money that will actually help. There is an expansionary policy which should also facilitate acceptance by the population. Reforms might actually come all together, and again, combined with investment plans, might actually give a boost to the economy and also facilitate, overcoming some difficulties. So I think the timing is right. The government team is right as well. We will see whether it works, but certainly Italy doesn't really have many other chances. This is probably the last one.
What about the structural reforms? Angelica's mentioned, Davide's come up with a couple in terms of the bureaucratic mess that Italy can be when it comes to planning, etc. Where do you think, from an economic point of view, those reforms?
I fully agree with them, because I think the judicial has always been a big issue in Italy. It takes many years to get to the end of a case, and I think public administration is also crucial. It's well known and fully understood by the government that without an efficient public administration, the plans cannot hit the ground. So I think the government knows that. The plan is to really go for the public administration first, reforming the procurement code, which is equally important, and then will come over time a reform of civil justice. And certainly the procurement code is another area that needs to be tackled quite urgently.
So Davide, and I'll be with you in just a moment, Angelica, to ask about the next practical step. But Davide, is Italy about to have a revolution in terms of the way that it looks at the world and the way it works?
Well, I'm not sure to the extent to which the country will be able to change within the next few years. But surely this really changes the role of Italy within the EU and within the community. If the country succeeds and gets back to growth and restarts to attract young people and to keep its own young people, this success can really be sold to argue for a larger role of the EU in a sense of pooling, for instance, public debt in the future, or having more fiscal interventions in cases of a crisis, which is really the missing piece of the monetary union that countries have been trying to get for quite a few years. But of course, the main issue is public opinion in northern countries, which is not happy to contribute to projects where they don't work. So really the challenge is to win this battle in Italy, Spain, France, and other countries in order to...
I'll come on to the brain drain, the attraction of other countries to Italy's younger people in just a moment, if we may. But Angelica, I want to ask you, okay, you've had your rail against the way that Italy takes a long time to get things done. But what about the things that you now believe need to be done on the ground, the infrastructure? There are 6 missions. We can't go into each one of them with this plan, but what would you say the most important in terms of infrastructure is?
So the Italian recovery plan touches the construction industry across all 6 pillars. The Italian Construction Industry Association estimated that 48% of the funds spent will go through our sector. Obviously, infrastructure spending is front and foremost for me, for sure, because of the business I'm in, but also because, as we sadly know from recent tragic events, the Italian infrastructure system is falling to pieces. The north and south of the country are very unequal in terms of their connectivity. And as we know from history, after the Second World War, the Italian economy was kickstarted through infrastructure spending. So definitely the first port of call is boosting infrastructure to boost better connectivity and boost local spending.
Since this has been going on for generations, are you brought up in Italy to accept this as the way it is? It is slow, it is cumbersome, it is ineffective. And if that is the case, how on earth can you expect to change it rapidly and get this right?
I would say that younger generations are no longer willing to accept inefficiencies, especially because the world is ever more connected. So we see how well things work elsewhere. And I think there's this desire to come to speed and to terms with changing times. And so I think we need to look at young people who are the most disadvantaged at this moment and the ones who suffered the most from the coronavirus pandemic to be the tool and the stimulus to restart the economy.
Let's hear now from Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President.
We want to build a green Europe which protects our climate and our environment and which creates sustainable jobs. We want to invest in a digital Europe, innovative and competitive in global markets. And we want a resilient Europe, which is better prepared to face future crises.
Future crises, Lorenzo, do you think she's referring to what happened in Italy and in other individual countries, or is she talking about the European Union as a whole?
Well, I think she is clearly talking about not only Europe, but the world. I mean, climate might be the next crisis globally. And to some extent, even the pandemic can be perceived as part of a climate change crisis, so to speak. Some people say that. Now, whether this is going to be effective, well, remains to be seen. But I think it is just an entry point, so to speak. So effectively, Italy needs to enhance the stock of capital, productive capital, so that can enhance potential growth going forward. Whether this is green investment or something else, it remains to be seen. But when you give a boost to green investment, effectively, you are basically enhancing the productive capital of the country, which is what really matters.
Do you think your generation, not yours in particular, but people of the same age, a bit older than Davide and Angelica, have let Italy down, and that is why they are now impatient?
Well, to some extent, yes, in a sense that I think if you look at the governments that Italy had in the past, they were not really able to tackle the real bottlenecks for the economy and allow the country to grow. So I think the country has many structural issues, not least the messed up incentive structure, which as you mentioned, led many young Italians to move out of the country. So there are many deep cultural and economic problems that needs to be addressed.
How big a problem is the brain drain?
Well, it's not massive, but still, it's taking the most brilliant people out of the country, and so it is again. It's even if it's not a massive movement, it's still quite significant because of the high quality of people that move outside of the country.
And could this plan bring them back, do you think?
Well, if growth comes back to Italy and Italy future becomes brighter, I think that is the most important issue for young people because they want to have job perspectives. They want to have a positive outlook for the future, which is not fully the case at the moment. So I think if you have opportunities, that would be enough to probably bring back some of the people into the country. I think it's not bad that young Italians leave the country, but the problem is that Italy is not able to attract young people from other countries and replace, so to speak, the drain that is going on.
Angelica, if this works and is a beacon for the European Union, is a lifeline for Italy, what will Italy look like for your children? What will the future look like for Italy?
I would hope that the boost that these 200+ billion euros, which should and I hope will be spent on making our country greener, more effective, more innovative, better connected, more productive, will obviously boost GDP. The forecasts are that it's going to boost GDP by 3.6%. at the end of the plan, and it will build a future for the generations that come after us, which will allow them to thrive and to be competitive on a European and global scale without being burdened with the massive overload of debts that we have today. Let's not forget that Italy is exiting COVID with 160% debt to GDP ratio, which is frightening. So my hope is that we will leave the generations that come after us wealth and not debt.
And do you appreciate what I was saying when I accused, perhaps individually very unfairly, Lorenzo of ruining Italy, him and his generation, others before, of course, and others since? Do you share that impatience that I mentioned?
I 100% agree. I think that we are paying the price for mistakes and mismanagement that happened in the past. It's not something that you can blame the most recent government. It's something that's gone on for 50 years. And now it's kind of the day of reckoning. We either reset and restart, or I really don't see when we will ever have another chance to claw our way out of this hole. I mean, as you've said, as my colleagues have said, Italy's growth has stalled for the past 30 years. We have massive unemployment rates, especially for women and young people. And I think now is our last chance to really redeem ourselves as a country. And we have a leader who is well placed on the global scene to do so. We have the monies, we have the ideas. Let's do it.
Davide, it's a heck of a gamble, though, isn't it, for the European Union? Italy needs the money. It has to take it. Let's hope it can spend it. But it's a heck of a gamble for the European Union to pick a country as profligate as Italy and say, make this financial plan work. Otherwise, we're doomed.
Yeah, it's really an interesting case. Italy, first of all, is the only net contributor. So a country that normally contributes more to the budget than it gets back. It's the only one that is, in this case, is getting much more than it will be paying in. And really, the future of European integration in terms of debt pooling really depends on the success of the Italian plan. And one of the aspects I do care the most, being quite young, is really two aspects that are linked, that are youth unemployment and brain drain. And this is really a European issue, because countries like Romania, Spain, the internal regions of France and Italy are suffering from this. And when it comes to Italy, we're talking about 6 million Italians living abroad out of a population in Italy of 60 million residents, and really a dangerous record over the last few years. 250,000 people in 2018 alone, registered abroad. Of these, more than 40% are people between 18 and 34 years old, and more than 33% have a degree, so a university title. To put it into perspective, people of this age in Italy who have a degree are around 25%, 26% of the total, whereas the EU average is 40%. So there really is a brain drain going out from Italy. And Italy is not
I might come back to you in a moment, if I may, Davide, but I want to throw something to Lorenzo, if I like. Reading the notes that were given to me by my producers, I saw the phrase, the Italian bet. This is what that is, isn't it? It's a massive gamble.
Well, it is a gamble, but it is a reasoned gamble, if you wish. In other words, Italy needs major structural reforms. For the first time, you have an opportunity to introduce major structural reforms, and at the same time, which is very important, to go for structural reforms, major structural reforms. And the way to do it is to put some money on the table, because the problem in the past was that voters were asked to go into painful fiscal adjustments and through reforms without having any kind of feel-good effect. Now this time, Europe is on your side, and you have the money to spend. So I think they should facilitate also the structure adjustment.
My apologies for interrupting. Davide, keep it short if you don't mind, because I want to go back to Angelica for a last word. What happens if this doesn't work?
In 1991, Italy had about the same GDP as France and the UK. Now it has a third less. So for the country, a failure in this case means losing one in a generation opportunity to go back to growth, to really relaunch the image of the country and its potential. What scares me?
I promised Angelica a chance at the end. Are you frightened or are you excited?
I'm an optimist by nature. I have to be, otherwise I wouldn't be running a business in Italy. And I'm excited. I really think this will be a turning point for our country. We need to put all our efforts and energy into making sure that this is the case. Obviously, the government needs to do its part, and we need to do our part as entrepreneurs, as citizens, to make sure that everybody who is responsible is held accountable and does what they need to do to make this a success.
And what will be the first thing you do when we let you go from this television screen and say you can get back to proper work? What will you tell the people who work with you for you?
I will let them know that they need to buckle down, get to work, and carry on pushing to make sure that we get our projects in the ground, and no matter how complicated the bureaucracy is, that we get our job done on time.
And there's an awful lot of money to be spent. You hopefully will have a hand in that, yeah?
I will try my best, yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Angelica. Davide, we much appreciate it. Good to see you on the program for the first time. And Lorenzo, your expertise, as ever, much valued. Thank you for coming back. We hope to see you again. And we hope to have your company wherever you happen to be watching this edition of Roundtable. Do join us on another occasion, but that's all we have time for right now. From me, David Foster, and the team, goodbye.